All right, so now we are, however many weeks into this war. What is this, like six, seven now? No. But yeah, this no exit strategy in sight. We have officially had multiple aircraft shot down. So that's the story we're going to cover here first. So, Darren, tell me what you know about these two planes. Well, it's more than that now, I'm sure. But how about these two pilots we had to go over there and rescue?
Yeah, so an F-15E was shot down, and the cockpit holds two pilots, so one in the front and one in the back. And at first, it was kind of ambiguous. Was it like a mechanical failure, or did Iran shoot it down? It turns out that Iran did, in fact, shoot this plane down. So even though we have air superiority, that's different than air supremacy, but air superiority, it seems Iran does still have the capability in a limited sense to threaten our air power. So we're not at the level of air supremacy in the western half of the country yet. With that being said, the plane was shot down over the southwestern, or I guess just western portion of the country. And the first pilot that was downed was recovered fairly quickly, probably within hours of the mainstream media covering that the plane was shot down. That pilot was recovered. But then we could not, for the life of us, find the second pilot. And it was over 24 hours, I believe, before we actually picked up the second pilot. And this pilot, it's actually incredibly impressive. So they have some kind of protocol when these pilots are downed, and they basically just get as far away from the plane as possible, and then they hide, in whatever natural cover they can and try their darndest to send out some kind of, signal that, hey, I'm down, I need help. And eventually he did get help in an operation involving like, I've heard numbers like it involved like hundreds of U.S. personnel, special operations forces, helicopters. They employed other planes as well to fly people in to rescue these guys. Uh, Apparently, this guy was pretty wounded too, but he was able to get pretty far. Eventually, we got him up and out of the country. I don't know. Did you see? I've been talking a minute. Did you see the videos they were posting on social media of all of our aircraft like searching for this guy and how low they were flying?
Yeah, I'm also very like, I mean, I don't share as much of those because I don't know what's real and what's fake, obviously. So,
Mm-hmm.
but they did turn out to be real. I know what you're referencing. I just didn't know if they ended up being real or not.
Yeah, it's so hard in today's information environment to say what's real or not, but
But you're telling me
I do believe.
A C-130 flying that low? I was like, that doesn't look right. Like they're clearly not meant to fly that low. So it was just very odd. But
Oh yeah, it's certainly dangerous for our uh for the equipment. I mean, the equipment, it's durable, but I mean, just one surface to air missile can really cause some damage. So,
right. Yeah, I mean,
but yeah,
it's just really sorry. I didn't know if you were done.
no,
I
no,
just
you're fine, you're fine.
I just wanted to say that like it just is really weird going from like this to the Iraq War or even like Vietnam, where we had virtual like, it still wasn't air supremacy where we could literally do whatever we want, but like I think it's safe to say that like right now our airmen are at more of a risk than at any point during the GWAT. So, I just think that that's really something that needs to be taken into account a little bit more. So,
I would say that's totally correct. I mean, Iran is just a more advanced nation than Iraq was back in 2003, and certainly more advanced than Afghanistan. So it's proving to be a real challenge. And uh, what do you think? Let's discuss this aspect of it. There's a whole ton of things to discuss about it, but let's look at this aspect. Was this a victory for the US or the Iran? I feel like they both can kind of take something and brag to their people from this story. On the one hand, the Iranians can claim they downed an F-15E, and then they also destroyed other planes in the process of the extraction of this one airman. So it imposed a heavy financial cost on the U.S., even though no airmen were killed. And on the other hand, the U.S., we can say, well, we might have torched millions of dollars worth of equipment, but we saved a U.S. soldier's life. We're willing to do anything to protect our people. And ultimately, we were able to go into their territory and they couldn't kill us. And it's kind of an embarrassment for Iran that they couldn't because we were pretty deep into their territory. We're talking hundreds of miles. So, what do you think? Who came out of this looking better or worse on the global stage? What's your estimation?
well, before we get to the global stage, let me just mention that this has got to be a pretty big propaganda win for the Iranians, right? I mean, they basically get to showcase to their, citizens like, hey, listen, regardless of how they spin it, they're going to say that they shot down a C-130 and F-15 and A-10, right? And multiple of them, right? And that's not counting the helicopters, right? So there's definitely propaganda wins for the Iranians. And then A or B, just being able to strike down an F-15 and an A-10 is like a pretty. I mean, it just kind of goes to like maybe we're underestimating their capabilities a little bit at the moment because uh, the White House will tell you that 90% of their capabilities are done. And if that's true, which it's not, but if it is true, then it's the least effective 90% because they're still at some point or at some level able to impose their will, whether it's over the Strait of Hormuz or over their airspace. Now, in terms of like, how is this a win for us? I mean, it is pretty badass that we got this guy alive back and, you know, didn't. My understanding is that we took no deaths, like no casualties. So if that's true, that's amazing. I mean, that's a miracle. So, and it tells all the soldiers in the region that are like, hey, if you're stuck behind enemy lines, like the cost doesn't matter. Let me just critique this too because you mentioned it a little bit, and I don't think you were doing it to nearly the level I've been seeing. But there are some people online that are talking about how we just wasted millions of dollars, right? We just left millions of dollars of equipment behind. And I just got to be honest. I mean, you tell me, like, do you care? I don't give a fuck. Like, if we have you're telling me we have an American over there fighting for his fucking life in the mountains of Iran, hundreds of miles into enemy territory, and we're over here bitching about $15 million or $20 million or 100. I don't care what the number is, right? Like, the idea is that we're gonna go back there and get our fucking guy back. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the number is in the hundreds of millions, and to me, that's nothing. I mean, especially when the alternative, even if I was being completely cynical and didn't value this airman's life, which I do, but even if I was being completely cynical, $100 million is nothing compared to, not letting Iran have some kind of leverage over us where they're like, they have a captive,
Right.
It's like how many hundreds of millions in tax revenue were generated just today today alone in the U.S. I mean, uh, there's no telling. I mean, our economy is huge. We have a massive, many trillion-dollar economy. $300 million is no skin off our nose. And I think it was a huge morale boost, like you were saying, that our guys know, hey, if you're stuck behind enemy lines, we're gonna save you, and we're gonna, no matter the risk we have to take. So,
Yeah, no,
all
one
in
one
all, I
hundred
I think
percent. Now, I am worried, to be a little bit honest with you, that this is going to give him the Venezuela effect and he's going to think that we can just go in there and kick ass and not take any casualties. So, like, I am a little bit worried about that. But in terms of like this mission, like the merits of it, complete success from the United States standpoint. As long as, and I don't know if maybe we can get into this a little bit. Have you seen any of the speculation that this was a failed mission in an attempt to get like nuclear material from Isfahan?
I have seen that,
I
and
could,
people will point to like the type of aircraft used, like they're using very large aircraft for something that might not necessarily require it, since it's a search and rescue, and kind of seems like a bit much to have these giant transport vehicles. But then again, I think there were like a ton of boots on the ground in terms of like the team, because I believe a SEAL team actually extracted this guy. So maybe you do need a big aircraft to get all these guys out. I don't know. I'm not
well,
savvy enough to tell.
yeah, I was gonna say I'm out of my depths on that one, but I wanted to say that I didn't buy it because like right now it's floating around online a lot, and I just kind of was like, this is more people who are almost like listen, there's two types of people who oppose this war, right? There are people who oppose this war and they're like, and they're rooting for us to fail, right?
Yeah,
Versus
yeah.
versus there are some of us who just kind of expect that we are, like just because of all the strategic stuff about it. I
I have
just
noticed that. Yeah.
yeah, there are
That
like I'll call out Kyle Kalinske a little bit. He seems like he's almost rooting against us. And don't get me wrong, there is opposition to the war for obvious reasons, but it's almost like he's looking for reasons for us to, fail. And I'm like, well, okay. I don't know what to do with a lot of these people.
Yeah, that irks me as well. It is a pet peeve, because my line is, yes, we should have never started this war, and I don't think it's a wise move. But there were people that they might not have explicitly said it, but the subtext of whatever they were saying online basically was that they wanted the airmen to be captured. And I'm like, that's insane. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
like, this
Um,
is, obvious. This is still our guy, and I don't want any harm to come to him. Part of the reason I'm against the war is because I don't want harm to befall servicemen, So, yeah, especially for something so unnecessary. So,
right.
yeah.
And yeah, it's just to kind of piggyback off of that. It's the way they layer information, right? So they'll talk about the Israelification of our military and how like we're committing war crimes and how our military is a bunch of genocidal maniacs. And then they'll be like, and then what do you think's going to happen when Iran captures this guy? And it's like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like it's almost like they're rooting for this dude to get captured and fucking have horrible things done to him. And I'm like, well, that's listen, and you're right. They don't explicitly say that, but it's one of those things that you can just they're leave it's a dog whistle for sure. They are dog whistling for that type of stuff to happen, and it's ridiculous.
Certainly. It's almost like a sort of wish casting or manifesting. They're like, saying it, and then the conceit is that they secretly want it to happen.
Hmm.
Yeah, I definitely see that. And you see these people. I kind of see it from people like Ryan Grimm and Crystal Ball. They'll say they will be overly critical of our capabilities to the point where they almost seem to. It's like when they almost try to make the enemy look like badass. And don't get me wrong, Iran has proven itself to be a more worthy adversary than many people previously thought. But when they like portray them as like super, badass, good fighters, I'm like, okay, I think there is a bit of pro Iran sentiment in here that is just bubbling below the surface. But I digress.
Yeah, no, I get you. Um, but I just let's switch over to this now. Like, I kind of touched on it a little bit, but do you think that this will give Trump the I guess the confidence he needs to put boots on the ground because all signs are pointing towards, we're encroaching towards boots on the ground, you know. So I just wanted to
Ye-
see if you thought that this would help or hurt or net zero that possibility.
Well, I felt that you made an excellent point when you said, kind of like Venezuela giving Trump maybe the ego or morale boost to go all in on Iran. Maybe this little ground operation will also kind of give him that ego boost to where he thinks we could do like a full-fledged invasion with like landing craft and paratroopers coming in for something that isn't as limited as an extraction mission. So I think so. I mean, and you look at the escalation calculus. Uh, Trump just keeps delaying this supposed timeline uh, for Iran to make a deal, and obviously Iran is not going to bite. So for our viewers, we're recording Monday evening. Jul- Not July, April 6th is the date. And I believe the Iranians, per Trump's latest statement, have until tomorrow evening to make a deal. Well, I'm going to tell you right now that they're not going to make a deal. So rather, Trump tacos and pushes back the timeline yet again for what I don't know, like the 10th time now. Uh,
At least,
re-
at least.
oh yeah, whether he does that or he does something crazy, which you know I think is totally possible. Maybe Karg Island, maybe some other island, maybe they do try to land near a nuclear site and extract material. I don't know. It's possible. I He can only taco so much though. I think he does have like a number of tacos, and then for every like 5, 6 tacos, he's gonna do like one crazy thing. It seems like so. I don't know. I think something's coming, but what chance do you give it that something happens soon, like boots on the ground?
Well, I mean, I do know just based off of all the stuff that I saw from Joe Kent, who was doing the podcast circuit. The people that are opposing this war are literally getting fired or removed from the room, right? So like we're at they've fired generals, right? Or they have
Hmm.
Tulsi Gabbard has essentially been pushed out of the room, which is like the worst thing that could happen if you're opposed to boots on the ground, right? And it's one of those things like it just becomes a matter of when, not if, we're gonna go boots on the ground, at least at some level, right? So if the only people in Trump's ear are, and I'm not kidding, like literally like Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham, then we have a problem, right? If the only lone voice in the room is JD Vance, then we have a serious fucking problem. Because this is only going to escalate, and it's only put our troops more at risk. So I kind of now listen as far as is he going to taco on Tuesday at I think it's like 8 o'clock Eastern, which would be April 7th, then I don't know. I would bet he would taco, but I'm with you. He can only taco so much. And that's not even counting Netanyahu in his ear, right? And all the
Oh yeah.
lobby and the Adelsons, right? And all these people. And I think the media has been very pro this war, at least from my perspective. So it's one of those things. I don't think he can. I think his gut tells him, hey, the American people don't want boots on the grounds. They don't really want this war. But I think he's able to convince himself that, like, well, they're just gonna trust me, because he said something along the lines of, well, if it were up to me, I would just take the oil, right? But the American people, they just don't want it. Um,
Yeah.
so I guess we can't go do that. And I'm like, well, what an insane thing to say out loud, which is crazy. Um, but then, he's also crashing out. I'm sure you saw this too. Did you see that tweet he posted on Easter?
Oh yeah. Would I have it right here if you'd like me to
Yeah, go ahead and read it. Isn't it nuts? Okay, I want everyone to keep in mind before Darren reads this. This is the commander in chief, the guy in charge of the most powerful military ever created on this planet. Go ahead, Darren.
Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. President Donald J. Trump.
I mean,
That's
that's
a real tweet. Or
that's
truth.
yeah, that's psychotic. That is literally psychotic, right? And I can't I can't deal with it anymore. It seems like we've given up on the talking point that there are a bunch of religious extremists who can't be reasoned with, and then like we have a president that's literally truthing stuff like that. So like, I mean, you tell me who the crazy one is. But also, just to back up a little bit, how is he going to say that opening the strait isn't even that big of a deal? We don't need to open the strait. Nobody cares if we do. Europe, if you care about it so much, why don't you open it up yourself? And then also, then he does this where he's like, if you don't open up the strait, I'll fucking bomb civilian infrastructure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how does that make sense? I don't
Yeah,
know.
he's been trying to bluff this entire time, like, oh, we don't even care. So if all the people who get their oil from, the Strait of Hormuz and that region, like, our Asian partners and Europe, if they want the oil, then they have to go get it themselves. We don't care. But he can't feign that because I mean, you can just look at what he does rather than what he says. I mean, he's building up even more of a force posture. A third aircraft carrier is entering the region. All these troops are entering the region. He's only escalating. He's attacking bridges, like he said in the tweet. I mean, you can just look at what he's doing. He obviously cares very much about this strait being open. So, yeah, it's ridiculous to for him to play as though he doesn't care about the fate of it, but I
Yeah.
digress.
And it's unbelievable that because like really, I mean, we talked about it on the previous episode. Like he doesn't have many options in terms of like an exit strategy, but he doesn't seem to be pursuing really any of them right now from my understanding. Like the way I'm observing this, it looks like Trump is just hoping and praying that the Iranians are just going to like take it on the chin, give up control of the Strait of Hormuz, and then move on, which is insane to think that that's going to happen, right? So it,
Yeah.
I just don't understand why we're not pursuing any option. Like this is what doesn't make any sense to me. It's like why can't we? I understand that pursuing like diplomacy would require concessions from our end, but fuck, dude, everything is preferable to this. You know what I mean? Like it's yeah, that wouldn't be great from like an optics standpoint, but you're going to tell me that we would rather We would rather what? Bomb them into the fucking Stone Age? That's another thing he said during his speech, right? He's like, we're gonna bomb them into the fucking Stone Age. And it's like, what are we talking about? you know?
Yeah, that would be catastrophic for years to come if he did that. And honestly, I don't discount it entirely that he'd be willing to do it. I say honestly, like I've basically accepted that there's like a 50% chance that one of these weekends he or maybe after tomorrow night, he's just gonna like team up with the Israelis and like destroy all their power plants, their desalination facility. I mean, their desalination facilities don't really matter all that much because they don't rely on them like some of the Gulf countries do. But even still, all kinds of critical infrastructure. I think he will. I think there's a good chance he greenlights it. I mean, the IDF. I'm sure we were informed about it before they did it. They struck a petrochemical complex in southern Iran, and apparently it was responsible for like 85% of Iran's petrochemical exports. So, a petrochemical product is like plastics, products created from oil and stuff. So, I mean, this is a huge industry, I would imagine, from especially for an oil state or an oil-based state. So
Yeah. Let me ask you
it's
this
only
too.
escalating.
Let me ask you this too, because we haven't really touched on this. I was listening to Tucker Carlson getting his perspective on this, and he thought, and there's a lot of this running around, that this is kind of the end of the unipolar world, right? And so we're just going to enter into a world of multipolarity. Um, do you kind of see that? Do you see like, the European Union kind of, I guess it'd be like imagine NATO if we left it. If they kind of did their own thing, ruled over their continent, we did, basically the Western Hemisphere, and then obviously China in the East, Russia and the Middle East. Do you see that as happening? Like, does this weaken our position on the global stage? Does this give countries, even allies, more of a reason to align with, say, Russia, China, the EU, etc.?
I think Trump is definitely alienating everyone except like Israel right now, but I will say it would be incredibly costly for the Europeans, especially, and also, some of our Pacific partners to, do have some like divorce from us. I mean, you got to think like these Europeans, especially, they all live in these very cushy welfare states. And they're able to do that because we pay for their defense, which otherwise would be a nation's, one of their largest expenditures. So the fact that they're not paying for that to the degree that we do, uh, they would have to give a lot up to still have influence across the world and uh, they wouldn't be able to have influence across the world and have a welfare state. So I think the incentives are just too strong for them to like ride out the Trump years and then just wait for a sensible person to get in. But I do think in many ways Trump is an accelerant towards a multipolar world, especially if our allies come to hate us. But in the past, we've had major tiffs with our allies. Think the Suez Crisis. I mean, uh, that pitted us against Britain and France, but ultimately we all remained in NATO. So
Yeah, it's really funny too. It's this war with Iran has been called the American Suez. So that's it's really funny that you brought that up because of the Strait. obviously.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah. It's an apt comparison
oh
because
yeah, because that was basically like the nail in the coffin for like French and British power projection across the globe, right? Whenever we stepped in and said, no, this isn't your job anymore, actually, right? So just
the only
think about
thing
it.
is who will be the America in this analogy? Because as it stands, we have people stepping up to help in negotiations. Think Pakistan. And then we have people negotiating on their own with Iran, uh, you know, whether that be Japan, France, the Philippines. But I don't know that there's like, you know, is China really stepping up to the plate in this? Because they would be, I would think, like the analogous power to wrest control from the Americans. So I
Well,
don't see China really stepping up to the plate here. They haven't really
no,
been
God, no.
leading the
They
diplomatic effort or.
China is doing exactly what they should be doing, and that's just listen. This is a powder keg of a situation, and the last thing China wants to do is you know let Trump put out the fire before it reaches the keg. You know what I mean. So like they have no interest in stopping any of this from ensuing until it starts to affect them. Like that's why we haven't been seizing Iranian oil tankers or bombing them is because all the oil goes to China. So like they're one of those like we just don't want to fuck with them right now. But and plus
Yeah,
they're already benefiting a lot from this. So like if it doesn't necessarily have to be as vocal to me as China steps in and imposes their will on the end of this conflict. I don't think that'll happen. What I do think will happen is part of the concessions will be, hey, the GCC countries typically you have to have the petrodollar, right? Well, now all the transactions have to be done in the Chinese. They have the yuan, right?
hmm
Yeah, so like all the transact, which is already happening. Like we've already seen, like France is getting their oil tankers through because they're doing the transaction in yuan, not in USD. So, um, I don't know. It's just very interesting to see. And listen, well, here's my understanding, like why this is still bad long term for the U.S. Because like you have to think. Let's say you're Macron right now, right, or Starmer, or any one of them. You have to think that like, well, okay, listen. Let's say that someone more stable comes in 2028. There's no reason to believe that the Americans aren't going to vote in somebody again that's just as bad in the future, right? I mean, you have to think the average European has to think that the average American voter is best case scenario an idiot, right? Like
yeah.
that's the best case scenario because they're like, huh. Because I mean, look at it from an outsider perspective. You have a convicted felon who tried to coup your own government and led over like some of the biggest economic crashes in the country's history, and they reelected him. You know what I mean? Like that. That's fucking. They have to think just so negatively of our population. And yeah, I understand what you're saying about like, maybe they won't have power projection at the level, but they don't really need power projection. Like they're nuclear powers. They don't really need, or at least they're restarting a lot of their nuclear capabilities. So there's no reason for them to go get involved in wars in the Middle East. I mean, they don't want to suicide their own country. They would just have to be wiser about how they spend their money. Like that's, I don't know. I see this as more of a long-term threat for that than maybe you do. Maybe you remain unconvinced, but I'm just thinking that like this is going to be permanently damaging to the US. So,
It's very damaging.
and not just this too, like the tariffs, the everything. Everything Trump is plutonium to me.
Yeah, I certainly think it's obviously bad optics. There's no denying that. But I think I'm still optimistic enough. I think the world is going to see Trump as a uniquely chaotic figure, one that I'm really hoping they'll all just kind of see as an anomaly, and then once his time is over, he can maybe be the memory of him can maybe be brushed aside into the
Well,
dustbin.
if
And
I
I
may,
say, mhm, go
if
for
I
it.
may, I just think that saying that is more of a wish than a plan. That's all I'm saying. But go
Oh,
ahead.
it's certainly a wish, and it's certainly it's not a plan. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely just what I'm hoping will be the case. But there is a logic behind it. So, okay, so a funny anecdote that I saw, and perhaps you also saw on Twitter. So, Soleimani's grandniece and his niece apparently live uh, or resided at one point in the U.S., but I guess Marco Rubio announced that ICE detained them and that they're going to be deported. And so, because I believe the niece, I don't know about the grandniece, but I believe the niece of Mr. Soleimani still apparently harbored our Islamic Republic of Iran sympathies. So they're getting deported. Don't you think that that's kind of like telling? It's like even the relatives of Soleimani himself would rather live in the US than Iran. And think also of like our biggest rival in the world, China. How many Chinese immigrants do you see in the US all the time? I mean, I see a ton of them, especially working on a university campus. I mean, our system, our way of life is just attractive. It's far more attractive than anything anywhere else in the world. I mean, Europe is comparable, but even they don't have what we have with our freedoms. So I think just our soft power alone will be able to negate a lot of the ill will that we have brought upon ourselves in the Trump years. I think people will have grace for us once Gavin Newsom is elected in 2028, and I think our soft power will prevail, our Hollywood films, our Coca-Cola, our free speech. I just don't think anywhere else has anything remotely as attractive as the US, except maybe Western Europe. So,
Well, I mean, there definitely was like whenever Biden got elected, right? I mean, there's that Gallup poll every year where they ask foreign leaders, like, do you approve of current U.S. leadership? And like, there's obviously this basically flatline, flatline, flatline. Trump gets elected, dip downward. Biden gets elected, dip upward, flatline, flatline, flatline. Trump gets elected, dip downward. So there is hope that like whenever Newsom gets elected, if you think it's him or some other Democrat, that there will be this thank God, like there is
yeah,
there
yeah.
is potential for that. Um, but I just have to say that like if that's the case, then like we have to start treating these people more as partners rather than members of like a ship that we're steering, which is probably better to begin with. And like this is as somebody who cares about the like hegemony of Western Europe and really Europe as a whole. Like I would, prefer if Israel or not Israel, if Europe acted as if they weren't going to be able to count on us, because then they would have to be better prepared individually, as a coalition. That would be better. Like if I was a European, I would live my life as if the United States was not going to be in NATO in 20 years. So I would just be preparing for that, and all that's going to lead to is a stronger Europe. So,
Yeah.
you know.
And honestly, we would all be better off for it if they hadn't lived that way because look at, what Ukraine has turned into. And look, it seems like Ukraine is doing pretty well for themselves, all things considered. Like they're holding the line against Russia, this supposed quasi superpower versus little old Ukraine. But if Europe, if they had actually committed and actually spent money on defense, they could have been much better partners in providing Ukraine with arms, intelligence, logistics, and maybe we'd be in a better position against Russia right now. But because they want to live these cushy welfare lives, now we're suffering. Well, not us, but the Ukrainians. So okay, this is a bit of a tangent. I am mad at Europe for not paying their fair share in terms of like defense spending for NATO.
Hmm.
But uh I'm pretty radical about it. Like, the pipeline that got bombed in like
The pipeline that
2020.
we blew up.
Yeah, I'm actually really glad Joe Biden did that because obviously Europe was not taking it serious enough if they're still gonna buy energy from Russia, which they claim to be, opposed to what they're doing in Ukraine, yet they're gonna buy Russian energy. I mean, that's just so stupid. So I was actually totally in favor of what Biden did there.
Well,
A lot of people.
just for the audience, it's not official that the Americans are who blew up Nord Stream. But we
Yeah,
know, you know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
it was definitely us. We just have to we have to say that it wasn't us. So, um,
yeah. I mean, yeah. Obviously, it's not confirmed, but I mean, who
who
does
the
it benefit?
who
Who has the
else? Who else
capability?
would do it? Who else would do it? You know, makes
Yeah,
no sense for anyone except us to do it. So, but
yeah, exactly. And then it's like you got to look at like even if we didn't do it, who would have supplied the equipment and the intelligence to the Ukrainians so that they could do it? It was rather us or them. And
yeah, either we literally did it all or we showed the Ukrainians how to do it. There's no third option. But anyway, um, I guess enough about Europe. But I mean, listen. Well, I guess we can stay on them a little bit. I mean, I agree with Macron's assessment here. He has been the most outspoken by far, where he was like, "Listen, this is insane what Trump is asking us to do. He wants us to go open up the strait. He's like, the strait was open 6 fucking weeks ago before this war started. He was like, why is it our job to clean up your mess? This makes no sense. So I
yeah,
just,
I broadly agree with Macron, but I guess in Trump's defense, it is kind of irksome that these Europeans aren't willing to do what we ask when we are pretty much the only ones defending Ukraine and we had to blow up their precious little pipeline so they could get off the Russian energy teat. So, yeah, I don't know. Macron, he kind of makes me mad because he has all this bravado, but he's actually very cowardly. I mean, I would respect Macron more if back when he was talking big game, he actually like put a lot of French boots on the ground to defend Ukraine. That would have been cool of him. But, he doesn't do that. He
well, you
just
can't
talks tough.
do that. You can't, I mean, you can't, because then you'll trigger an Article 5, right? Like that's, um,
I would respect it more if he did.
yeah,
I
but
would respect it more.
but
And
you
it
gotta,
wouldn't trigger Article 5 because it would be him.
yes, it would.
No, because he wouldn't have he would have been the aggressor, and that he would have joined voluntarily without the permission, without consulting the
Oh,
rest
yeah.
of,
Oh, yeah, you're
just
right.
like we did in Iran. That's why it didn't trigger Article 5 when, uh, that when they were hitting our bases, because
Well, I think
ultimately
Trump
this.
Trump is arguing that it did, right? Like Trump is arguing that like nobody came and helped us when we needed help, right? Like that's literally what Trump is arguing. Is that
Yeah, that, I
now he
mean,
won't use the words Article 5, but that's what he's saying. You know
yeah,
what I
that's
mean?
what he's saying, but I'm saying like you look at like the legal, you look at the text Article 5, and it really implies that you have to be attacked, not that everybody's going to jump in and gang up on somebody that you attacked. So that's kind of like the logic why none of the Europeans feel compelled to join us in this war.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, nor should they, in my opinion. Like, if I was a European, I
Oh yeah,
wouldn't,
it's
you
not in
know?
their interest at all. They
Yeah,
they should just strike a deal with Iran. I'm just saying. I guess I'm just being overly charitable to Trump here. I'm like, it is annoying that you know the vassals want to go their own way when it suits them, and then they want to you know
it's
borrow
because
all.
they're not true vassals, you know? Like, they're not true. They're not like the Gulf countries where it's like we literally are their military. Like, that's not what it is with the Europe. So
Yeah, they're
they are more equals for sure. So,
that is true. That is true.
was there anything else we missed? Oh, did you see this new Pentagon budget?
Would you tell me about it because I don't
Yeah.
know much about it.
Yeah, so basically, Trump is, you know, not preparing for an escalation of this conflict, which is why he asked for a reduction in the military budget. I'm just kidding. He decided he was going to ask in 2027 for a $1.5 trillion Pentagon budget. So this does not count all the secret funding, all the Department of Homeland Security funding. This is just the amount the Pentagon gets. So pretty big increase in funding. It's about a 40% increase. So just think about that. And I know you guys are in the audience are like, well, wait a minute. How are we going to pay for that? How are we going to raise taxes? We just cut taxes. Well, the real answer is that we're going to cut from fucking everything, evidently. So, here's a couple. I just listed them down. They've More Perfect Union has like this all broken down literally to like how this would be appropriated. So, let me see if I can find it. Okay, so 510 million is going to be cut for farmers and ag research. 240 million for school meals and food education. That's going to be fully eliminated. 1.6 billion for NOAA. 15.2 billion for roads, bridges, and other infrastructure projects. 1.3 billion for FEMA. I mean, Darren, I can go on here. Like this, the list that you're gonna have to cut of shit in order to get to a 1.5 trillion dollar budget is insane, and it's still not gonna be enough. So, and we're not gonna cut from ICE. You know what I mean? We're not gonna do that. So, we're cutting from everything else. I mean, I encourage you if you're, I mean, that's all shit that I cared about, but you know, this has something that everyone could pretty much be pissed about. Like, there's affordable housing contracts on there, there's grants for local law enforcement on there, NASA funding, I mean, public transit funding. There's literally everything is on there, basically. So, I guess my question to you, Darren, is that, you know, are our roads so good and they're in such pristine condition that we can afford to burn money on this war? Like, do you think that our kids are so educated that like we can just throw away funding, right? Like, do our farmers are they just rolling in the dough so much that we can just like hand all this money to our military with no repercussions? Like, what do you think?
uh, I actually have mixed feelings. It's like on one hand, i- if 1.5 trillion could preserve U.S. hegemony for a few more decades, it'd probably be worth it. Because I think so much is granted from hegemony, from being like the world superpower, that it would probably be on net profitable to especially with Iran. I mean, I'm not in favor of the Iran war, but we are to the point now where if we don't win this, it's going to have really bad long-term ramifications. So, I don't think 1.5 trillion at this point in time can save us, but if it could, I'd be willing to spend whatever to get this wrapped up and get us some kind of face-saving victory because it is not looking good.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe if we raise, tell you what, we need to do? We need to raise the military budget to 2 trillion. Then we'll have enough to preserve hegemony and win this war. I mean, of course I'm being silly, but like, listen, dude, I mean, you can't tell me that like I don't think the dollar amount is going to be like we already spend a shit ton of money and it is pretty like I would say our hegemony is getting almost inverted, right? So I don't think that we really have a spending problem, right? Like it just I don't know. Maybe you tell me, but maybe I've got that wrong, but I don't really see like, oh, if we just have a big enough, bad enough military, nobody will fuck with us. Because like clearly
well,
that's not true. We're being held hostage by a country that's a pariah state that literally does trade. I shit you not with literally a dozen countries at max. you know?
yeah, obviously, making better strategic decisions and allocating the resources we do have would probably be better than just throwing money at the problem. Obviously, just not getting in this war would have been the smart choice. And if you want Iran to fall, then honestly, I mean, it looks like Tehran might be out of water by July. So there's that. And there was already so much unrest in the country. We really could have just waited it out. And we already had that awesome victory on Venezuela. So yeah, I mean, obviously making better strategic choices is the best route. Rebuilding some of our industrial base would be much smarter, a much smarter use of our time.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
and
I mean, it
listen,
doesn't.
like the main reason, like the reason we give so much money to our military is because they provide an essential service not just to us but to the world, and it's not even really defense related, right? So like the reason that countries can't do shit like Iran is doing right now is because of the United States, right? If Indonesia, right, tried to they have a strait that like it's a huge supply chain for cargo ships. If they tried to fucking monopolize that, if fucking Panama tried to fucking do a toll booth through the fucking canal, if the fucking Egyptians tried, there would be fucking missiles launched at them from the United States. All right, pirates, right? Same thing. The Houthis, we've been fucking with them for a while, right? That's why we give our tax dollars to the United States Navy, right? Is because they protect global trade, and that benefits everybody. But right now, we can't even do that. So I don't see how like increasing this is going to help that at all. It's not a shortage of bombs that we have, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll just take like the Houthis if they tried to put a toll through on the Bab el Mandeb Strait. I mean, we've tried to bomb them out of existence. It didn't work. They can just move fast enough to where, like, literally, they'll shoot rockets and then they'll switch their locations quick enough to where we can't, short of a ground invasion, we can't really do much about the Houthis. So yeah, I
So
mean, I get it. I don't want every country in the world coming to the conclusion that they can disrupt global trade and then everything will be pricey because then, everybody's going to have to, instead of being in this globalized system, we're all going to have to move towards autarky or something where we just try to make everything ourselves domestically or like shore up, do friend shoring. So with like neighboring countries. So yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I
because
don't
we
want that.
back in the day, that's what they used to have, like in Europe. Like you got to think, like back before Germany was Germany, and it was just a collection of fucking kingdoms. Like if you were a merchant, say in Poland, or I guess back then it was Prussia, right? Like if you were going from there to Paris, every little kingdom you paid, you had to pay a toll, right? And so like the natural like problem with that is that it raises the cost of goods and it makes it to where the merchant in Poland won't even go to Paris because it's not profitable anymore, right? So like now apply that on a much larger scale, right? So the cost of oil is about, even if we allow like traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, because of the toll that now has to be paid, right? Which is about, I think it's like 2 million per vessel, right? Which is about, roughly $300 million a day for the Iranians. I mean, there's no telling how much that's going to increase the cost of oil globally, or fertilizer, or rubber, or resin, right? It just fuck this. All the more reason we shouldn't have got it. I know I'm not barking at you. I'm just, this was such a clusterfuck to get into, and now there's no exit strategy. I'm just getting pissed.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I agree, and it's to the point now. The Iranians don't trust us, and I don't blame them. Why would they? So the only way out is through. So Trump
Right.
really only can escalate. I mean, obviously there's the diplomatic solution, but for strategic reasons and for Trump's ego reasons, we obviously can't do that. So we have to escalate. So it's going to get worse before it gets better, if it ever gets better.
Yeah.
It's going to get a lot
So
worse.
this is the last thing, and then we can wrap up here. Do you expect boots on the ground, let's just say before the end of May?
Mm, I think so. I think so. I mean, it's been moving pretty quick so far. I don't think that's a crazy prediction anymore. Yeah, I think, yeah, before the end of May, but maybe before mid July. I think I could easily see boots on the ground. We're at the start of month two of this war, and we already kind of had boots on the ground with that search and rescue operation. So, what say you? Do you kind of agree with that timeline, or?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, nothing would shock me, to be honest with you. And we'll know, right? I mean, there's going to be, in order to have a force that would be required to do boots on the ground, you won't be able to hide it. The amount of assets you're going to have to move into the central command, the amount of troops you're going to have to deploy, right? Like it's probably going to be like we have 50,000 in South Korea, right? We're not even occupying it. We're just there as a deterrent. So how many
Hmm.
how many fucking troops are you going to need to conquer, even if it's just southern Iran? Like how many troops are you going to need for that, right? So I don't know. Um but yeah, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, I hope not. I would hope that we don't. I would hope that we understand that, like, listen, the loss of life is not worth it. The cost it's going to be is not worth it. And ultimately, like, we're not even sure how effective it's going to be. I hope that that thought prevails, but I don't think so. I would say that we're going to be boots on the ground by the end of the summer.